Now, let's get to the notes. Hello and welcome to Queen Things, the show where we talk about the things that matter to us queens, because if it matters to us, it matters. I'm KJ Miller. I'm a founder, a lecturer, a content creator, and the #1 investigator when it comes to this summer house mess. Or at least in my mind, I am investigator and professor. Because yes, once again, I have taken notes throughout Reunion Part 2 in my handy dandy, trusty professor portfolio. Boopity boopity boop. Professor Miller is back to school you girls, because once again, so much to discuss. I did take notes. That's exactly what we're going to get into. And as always, if I have time at the end and there's more that I want to discuss, I will. But we really have to get to the nitties and the gritties as it relates to this reunion. Once again, before I get to my notes, let me just start with my general thoughts. My #1 thought coming off of Reunion Part 2 is it does not in any way, to me, look like West and Amanda like each other for real. It really doesn't. They did not in any way give off the vibes of two people who really are deeply connected and emotionally connected and really care about one another. Not at all. Like, there were so many signs. First of all, just their body language. If you look at the way they are seated on the couch, Amanda's legs, for the most part, are crossed away from him. At no point are they kind of like turned into one another. At no point do they give each other, that couple's glance where you kind of look at each other because you know what the other person's going to say. There was none of that like talking with the eyes, none of that. Okay, that's on the couch. Then, of course, we have the moment where Amanda walks off and West makes no attempt to go after her until multiple people, including her husband, are like, you really should just go check to see if she is okay. It wasn't even a thought in his mind. Like, that's what's so crazy to me. The excuse he gave was, okay, if I run off, then we both run off, and then you guys are going to bitch about that. Okay, maybe you're thinking about this from the perspective of how is it going to play on camera? But again, to me, that just showcases that she is not a priority for you at all, because why is that the #1 thought and not, oh, this person who I deeply care about is so emotional right now. Let me go check on her. It quite literally looked like it didn't even occur to him. Then when filming starts back up, he's like, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I just need a minute. And he's like, okay, walks off without her. Just like, okay, these are things that, I mean, maybe it's just me as someone who cares about my husband, that I would try to check in. If I thought my husband were really going through a rough time or vice versa, there were just so many little ways in which it just didn't look like these are two people who deeply care about one another. I'm not suggesting that the relationship isn't real. I'm just suggesting it looks like two people who hooked up and now are kind of like in it against the world together because they got smoked out. You got smoked out, so now you kind of have to make it look like it was worth all this bullshit you've put everybody through by sticking it out. But it doesn't really seem like you want to be here. And then when everybody kept lining up the defenses and the reasons why this was going to implode and why it made no sense, at no point did either of them really push back on it. When Dara gave that full-throated read of West, it's the West show. It'll always be the West show. He's in it for himself. He treats women like garbage. I'm paraphrasing now. We'll listen to the whole thing because I screen recorded it because I was like, now this is a clean read. I want to remember this one. She gave all of that two times. Neither he nor Amanda gave a defense against it. But y'all are putting all of this at risk, imploding everything for this relationship that neither one of you can even raise your voice to defend. It was bizarre. That truly was my major takeaway. Neither of these people in any way looked like they cared for one another and looked like they cared enough to attempt to defend one another, to attempt to defend their relationship. And that to me is wild. You have quite literally blown up this friend group for a hookup. Yikes. That was my #1 takeaway. Somewhat related, my #2 takeaway was the only time we really saw West give any sort of full-throated defense or response or actually even really be engaged in the conversation was when they were talking about how Kyle treated Amanda during the summer and West coming to Amanda's defense. That's when suddenly West was able to speak in full sentences, again, coming to Amanda's defense and saying, you called her a dumbass fucking bitch. Like, obviously I wasn't okay with that. Obviously I was going to come to her defense. And to me, this just underscores the theory that a lot of people have put out there at this point, which was West saw Amanda being in need, saw the demise of their relationship as an opportunity for him to come in looking like the good guy. Because that is the only time we even see this man speaking up. Everybody has now said this, that, and the third about you, damn near cursed you and your mama. Okay. Like I have heard everybody on this couch speak up for how terrible you are, and you've had nothing to say. The only time you really have something to say is when we are flashing back to how Kyle was treating Amanda in the summer. Now you have something to say. And to me, it's because that's what he was prepared to talk about. From the beginning, that's what he was prepared to talk about. He was prepared to look like the good guy who came to Amanda's defense, who showed up for her as a real friend, and then eventually as a lover, you know, maybe if it was even crossing his mind at that point. That is what he was prepared to talk about, because that is how he wanted to be perceived to the audience. And so when he finds a moment, oh, I can be perceived as that again, the good guy who stuck up for a friend, oh, he's ready to talk. Not ready to talk during any other point, but during those moments, he's ready to talk. It just, again, just very much, to use Dara's words, it's the West show. And he is producing his own show in his mind. Oh, okay, wait. Then now I can speak, because this was what I wanted. I wanted to come across as the good guy, the protector, the good friend who helps someone in need. Now I can talk. It just feels very calculated, and, to use Sierra's word, very manipulative. And you can just see it. I don't know how anyone can watch all this and not walk away with West is a coward, truly a coward. I mean, the lack of self-defense, but also manipulative. Like, he's good at the manipulating behind the scenes to attempt to seem like the good guy when confronted with the fact that he is not that. He's too much of a coward to say anything about it. Seems like the worst type of guy, in my opinion. The worst. Like, thank God Sierra now is fully aware of just how terrible he is, and the wool is no longer over her eyes, because he seems like the worst type of person. But man, that really was my second takeaway. And then my third takeaway is, this is the episode where we got Amanda crying and walking off, and in my opinion, using her weaponized white woman tears. I'm not saying she's not allowed to cry. I mean, everybody is coming at you and calling you out for how truly terrible and embarrassing your behavior is. That might make anybody cry, but does it feel weaponized to walk off the stage, leave for, it must have been a very long time, keep everyone waiting, knowing like, ma'am, we need to talk, and we need to talk about you because you're the one who blew up the friend group. Does it feel like weaponized white woman tears? Yes. And I'm glad Sierra clocked it and Miha clocked it. Sierra clocked it by saying, she fucks my ex, I scoff, and she walks away. Like, no. You're not the victim here. You fucked my ex. You betrayed me. You blew up the friend group. Now you're crying? Huh? So I'm glad Sierra clocked it, and Miha clocked it when everyone else was like, yeah, I almost got up and went after her. I almost got up and went after her. And Miha was like, I did not almost get up and go after her. Very, which I loved. What? This is not a child. This is a grown woman who made a terrible choice and is now reaping the consequences of that choice. The fact that she's now in her room sulking and crying, frankly, who cares? Who cares? That's what I would have said. Who cares? She did a shitty thing to a friend and to her husband, did a really shitty thing. And now she's sad that people are calling her out for how shitty she is. Okay, she's allowed to be sad, but I don't know why that would make any one of you want to get up and run after her. Like, and I'm glad that Sierra and Miha both called it out, because what they didn't say, but what I know they both probably were thinking is, this is some white woman bullshit. This is a white woman using her tears, hoping to get the sympathy when she doesn't deserve sympathy. Not for this. It's one thing if you want to be sympathetic about her marriage to Kyle and the fact that, because he does at one point admit he acted out, or as Amanda put it, stepped out. Okay, you want to feel sorry for her for that? That's one thing. But we're going to feel sorry for her because she's being called out for her shitty behavior? No. And I just really hope in part 3, it's not about to be more of the, oh, Amanda's so sad because her husband mistreated her show. I get it. We needed to talk about, and Kyle did act out. I think just given what we're seeing of Amanda this season, it does seem pretty clear to me Kyle wasn't the only problem in that marriage. However, that doesn't excuse what he did, how he acted, how he treated her. And we did need to talk about it. I'm just not interested in this becoming the woe is Amanda show, because no, bitch, absolutely not. You fucked up. You were shitty, and you need to take every one of these licks from every one of these cast members. Now, let's get to the notes. Okay, so when we open up reunion part 2, we open up where we left off. Amanda is crying because Sierra just read her down, and West, and said, Amanda might be the perfect girl for you because she's weak and she's mute and she'll let you run the show, which was true. Amanda's crying. Lindsay, as we open, is saying, look, West is definitely going to do it to you. She's making her point. And West sort of tries to interject, and Lindsay says, West, you are a pathy. We believe nothing. I didn't know that we were abbreviating pathological liar to pathy, but okay. I immediately understood what she meant. I had never heard that phrase, but when she said, you are a pathy, we believe nothing, I said, oh, okay. New abbreviation alert. But I get it. And he is. Clearly he is. And even West now has done interviews saying, like, I regret lying because now no one believes anything I say. Yeah, that's how that works. But then immediately after that, KJ interjects, with what I think was such a great interjection. Basically, first he brings up, listen, my dad was a womanizer. He was very charming, so he made people love him, but he tore apart my family. And that is part of the reason why I am having such a hard time with this and struggling with this, right? He says that first. And then he says, particularly given the conversation about race that we had as a group this summer. We had that conversation, so you know how all of this impacts us as Black people and Sierra as a Black person in a different way, and you did it anyway. I'm so glad he brought it up. I'm sure Andy was going to, but I'm glad KJ did, just in case. Because you know what? One thing I'll say about these reunions is Andy doesn't actually always bring up everything. Maybe he means to, or maybe it gets left on the cutting room floor, but I'm glad KJ did, because I could see Bravo maybe not wanting to have that conversation again as it relates to West and Amanda fucking Sierra over. Sometimes Bravo does not like to dive in deeply to these race conversations. They like it when it's like how it was in the summer, where everything landed in a hunky-dory place. We had this conversation as a group. Everyone felt like, oh, I see you. I hear you. We're close knit. We're together now. Great. Like, that's when Bravo doesn't mind airing it, when it ends up in a good place. Sometimes they shy away when it's this. Now it's not in a good place. Now it's very clear West and Amanda used their white privilege and, attempted to make it seem as though they were allies, but they weren't. Fucked her over anyway, right? And so that's when sometimes Bravo can want to shy away from these things. I'm glad KJ was like, no, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. And Andy picked it right on up and said, and let's talk about it. And immediately then asked Sierra, what made you want to have that conversation? And did you feel that West was sincere in the moment? And Sierra says, in the moment, maybe. Now, no. It's very clear that West and Amanda were using buzzwords and the things that they felt like would sort of satiate me, things like, I see you, I hear you, but they clearly did not. To which then Andy says to Amanda, what do you say to that? Amanda, first of all, another thing I just want to say about Amanda is she spent the whole time talking in this like very aggravating monotone voice. which made everything come across as insincere. Literally everything, because there was like no inflection in her voice. But anyway, she attempts to say, everything I said, I said it because I meant it. But then, and this got me, she's like, I said it because I meant it. But, this has really hurt me. That's what she says. This has all really hurt me. I couldn't believe it. I had to pause. Of all the things you could have said, Andy literally just asked you, how do you react to hearing Sierra say, as it relates to the conversation around race, the two of you were playing in her face, saying the things you knew she'd want to hear, meanwhile not meaning any of it? That's the question. This is a very serious question. Amanda's answer is, I've been really hurt by this. The Caucasity. The Caucasity. I don't know what else to call it. That is some next level crazy shit. For you to be asked that question and to respond by saying, this really hurt me, my jaw was on the floor. I don't know how you can be less empathetic. It is, oh my God, it's hard for me to put into words just how terrible that moment was to me. You are so caught up in yourself that even when the question is directly asked about how you have harmed this woman and used your words in a way that inflicted harm because you attempted to make her feel safe and seen while you were actively fucking her over, and your response is, this hurt me. I would like white people everywhere to take note. Don't do that, okay? If you learn nothing else from these reunion episodes, don't do that. That was despicable. I have had an extremely low opinion of Amanda since this news dropped, but it is now below hell when she did that. When she said that, I don't think my opinion of her could get any lower, really and truly. So then we continue. Basically, Sierra says, this hurts you. Like, you've been out partying. You've been at every bar. People on the couch are saying, like, you're at a Yankees game. Clearly, you weren't hurt, okay? To which Amanda says, it was embarrassing to have to tell Sierra I kissed West, knowing he's seeing other girls. And Mia replies, it is embarrassing. And that's what makes Amanda walk off. I love Mia so much. Mia is coming in with these one-liners and killing it. In the first episode, it was, you went from being married to being one of West's side bitches? That's crazy. And then in this episode, it is embarrassing. Like, and just so matter-of-factly, like, yes, you should be embarrassed because this is embarrassing. And that's what made Amanda cry and walk off. Woo! So now, after Amanda walks off, we get into the conversation I already discussed where people are like, West, go after her. And he literally has to be convinced by every single person on the couch to go check on this woman that he ostensibly has a real relationship and real connection with. Yeah. Okay. That happens. In the meantime, this is when Dara comes in. Now, let me say this about Dara, and I do hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Let me say this about her. When you are a friend of in these shows and in these episodes, this Bravo sphere, there are people who come in and do the friend of thing right. And there are people who come in and do the friend of thing in such a boring, useless way. And I apologize, but I would absolutely put Levi in that category. Levi sat up on that couch. I don't know how long she was there. I can't tell you not one thing she said while she was there. I can't even tell you something she said while she was in the house. Like, so girl, I don't know, if you get a part two, like if you get to come back, try again, try something different. Whatever you did this summer, don't do that. Do a completely different thing, because I cannot overstress how forgettable you were. And I apologize if that sounds harsh, but this is reality TV. Okay. It is what it is. Dara, on the other hand, she said, I'm a friend of, you're going to know about me. you're going to know about me. And also when they come into these reunions, I feel like they get like 15 minutes on the couch. That's it. And she said, and I will make a splash. Let's listen to what she said. Bravo put together a nice little compilation because she had to say it twice. Bravo put together a nice little compilation on TikTok. Let's watch.
I'm going to be honest, Wes, I don't see you suddenly waking up one day and like, this is going to be the relationship that you stand up for and man up for. Like, you like people to think of you as a good guy. Yeah. But you treat the women that give themselves to you like they're expendable.
Any response, West?
No, I understand that. And I agree.
The biggest pattern in his life is that it is the West show. And it will always be the West show. And the biggest concern of his consistently is being well-liked and well-received. And he doesn't prioritize treating the women he is linked to romantically with the same respect as he does anybody else in his life. Okay. And I just foresee him for a very long time wanting someone who will mold and fold and fit into his life without excuse or complaint. And it's up to you to decide what's worth sacrificing for that kind of person.
Whoo, now, honey, that was a read. That was a read. Imagine being told you got 15 minutes on this couch. She came ready. I don't know. It didn't sound rehearsed to me, particularly because she had to do it twice. So to me, it didn't sound rehearsed, but I do think she came ready knowing what she wanted to say. So, and maybe she did rehearse it. Frankly, if you told me I only got 15 minutes on the couch, I would rehearse too. And again, Levi should have done a little some of that because I don't remember anything she said. But rehearsed or not, it needed to be said. And I do think it carried weight coming from her because she dated West before. And so she's not just saying this as an outside observer. She's saying it as someone who knows, which frankly, so is Sierra. And I appreciate her for saying it very calmly so that no one could be like, oh, she's just angry. No, she didn't seem angry at all. Not even a little bit. She seemed very matter of fact. And I don't know how you could disagree with the words that she said. I simply don't know how you, like, it's very plain. It's very clear. It is the West show. And the fact that Amanda, knowing everything, she knows as much as anybody else knows about West, chose him, gets back to what I said weeks ago. Amanda hates Sierra. To me, that is the only explanation that makes sense. You didn't choose West because he's so irresistible. Get out of here. Get out of here. This man is not so irresistible. You didn't choose him because he's so fine. You didn't choose him because you thought, unlike Kyle, he would stop hitting the bars and the clubs and stay home with you at night, cuddle up with you at night. Absolutely fucking not. That's not why you chose this man. You chose him because you're deeply insecure and because you hate Sierra. It like whether you want to call it that or not, you do. You do. And for what reason, we may never know. Again, my hypothesis, which I shared weeks ago on social media, is that you hate her because she always commanded the respect from Kyle that you did not. Also, she's prettier and funnier and more charismatic and just generally more beloved by everybody. So there are a number of reasons why you might hate her. We may never know, but why else would you choose this scrub of a man who doesn't care about women, who you know doesn't care about women? Like, you have all the evidence, ma'am, and you chose him anyway. It was to spite Sierra. Sierra said West chose you to spite her. I think you chose West to spite her. Both of y'all were just spiteful assholes as far as I can tell. And I will just say, Andy called it out too, because after all of this, he says to Amanda, kind of ironic for you to go from the Kyle show to the West show, right? Because we're all thinking it, because like every single thing that you have complained about as it relates to Kyle for years, you're going to experience with West times 1,000. Now, what I will say is, and Amanda tried to make this point, but just didn't manage to say anything particularly eloquently for the whole episode. She was married when she had those complaints about Kyle. Now she's single, right? So like, and it does make sense to me that when you're married, you don't want your man out till 4 a.m. But when you're single, you're like, hey, we're both out till 4 a.m. I can understand that. Here's the thing. As far as I can tell, because I didn't watch the earlier seasons of Summer House, when I came in, it was the season, I think it was the season right before they got married. But so they had been together for a minute. You were complaining about this before y'all got married, him being out and about and ripping and running the streets. So it's not as if it's like a new thing, which is why, again, I think you chose West to spite Sierra. Why else would you choose this hobbit of a man? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Moving on, I want to talk a little bit about Jesse, okay? Because it's about this time in the reunion we get to the Jesse portion. They talk about his music. And of course, they talk about when he asked West if he could make out with Sierra. You know, watching Jesse throughout this reunion, every time they pan to him, he's got like tears in his eyes. And I will say, I've always been hard on Jesse. I've never really liked him. I haven't had a strong dislike for him, but he did always come across as a playboy. And then I did not like how he treated Sierra that season that girl was on there. Yeah, I'm not going to remember her name. That girl, Lola, maybe Lexi. I think her name was Lexi. That girl that he dated for a summer, okay? And he, while dating Lexi, was still flirting with Sierra, but then essentially tried to throw Sierra under the boat for saying like, well, she's flirting with me. I didn't like that. And I just didn't like how he was moving generally. Okay. So I've never been a big Jesse fan, but I will say, watching this reunion, the fact that he's been so emotional the whole time, to me says this is someone who has used his humor and, you know, kind of hidden behind jokes and hidden behind trying to pick up girls or whatever, to kind of obscure his emotions. And he even says that as he's talking about the situation with Sierra. I made it a joke. I shouldn't have done that. I regret that because I had caught feelings like, and that was real. And so I'm getting the sense in this reunion, and he didn't say too much, like they didn't spend too much time on him. I'm getting the sense in this reunion, he is deeper than he lets on. And I hope next season or whenever again we come into contact with Jesse, he shows more of this, right? Like who he actually is. Because up until this point, I really haven't had it for Jesse like that. Like I don't hate him by any means. I just sort of felt like, meh. On him. I hope we get a little bit deeper. I feel like we're seeing a little bit more of him in this reunion. We'll see. You know, I don't know. I'm not all the way ready to give him the benefit of the doubt. No. Will I ever give a man the benefit of the doubt? I don't know. Certainly I'd give it to KJ before I'd give it to Jesse. But it feels like there's a bit more there than he has let us see. And I hope in future seasons we see more of it. I also want to say it's in this package with Jesse that they ask him about this song he wrote about being in love with his best friend. And if it was about Sierra, and he's like, no, I wrote it, a long time ago. And then the question was like, or did you write it about West and Amanda? Right. And Sierra kind of jokes and says, well, they can play it at their wedding now. And I love that she made that joke. By the way, Amanda immediately eye rolled. This eye roll, oh, girl, you are... She picked the right black girl to roll her eyes at, because there's some black girls, those eye rolls will get you in a different place. Okay. So thank goodness it's with the lovely angel Sierra. Anywho, I liked that Sierra made that joke because it sort of feels like we are watching throughout this process, Sierra actually process this and get to a place where she's over it. And I feel like now when you see her on these red carpets and you see her in these interviews, she really is in a different place. And I think this reunion genuinely helped get her there. The fact that she's like literally making a joke, well, they can play it at their wedding now, is to me a sign that she is like in real time processing and healing from this bullshit and letting these people go, or to use her word, putting them in the ground and covering them with dirt. She really is like legitimately doing that in real time. And it is making me so happy. I really hope that by the time we get to the end of part 3, we see her fully let them go because I want what's best for her. And they are both terrible troll people, just the dregs of society. And have made it clearer throughout this reunion. And I was happy to see that moment of levity from her because I do believe and hope it means she is like genuinely making her way out of this. And let me just quickly say, this moment where they brought up the Lindsay and Carl ad that they did kind of around the Carl's a mess situation. And Amanda attempted to get on her high horse and say, I never would have done that during their breakup. As if these two situations are in any way parallel. Again, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I thought my opinion of this woman couldn't get any lower. How are you attempting to make this about you? How are you attempting to say that you are the wronged party here? What? It is just honestly the gall. It is wild to me how terrible of a person she actually is. And the fact that none of us were aware of how terrible she was until now. She kept it hidden for 10 full years. That is, wow. The gall. Sierra literally was like, please. I mean, and Lindsay just responded like, yeah, but I didn't fuck my friend's ex. So you see how these two things aren't the same? Girl, yikes. So it ends like the session on the couch is basically ends with us talking about the Kyle and Amanda of it all, which I already really went into at the top. I don't really feel the need to say much more there, other than I will just say, in no way does the way Kyle treated Amanda justify Amanda getting together with West and screwing Sierra over. It just in no way. And it almost felt like that's sort of kind of what was trying to be implied. No, absolutely not. No one's buying that. So I hope they don't continue to try and chase down that narrative. Absolutely not. She quite literally could have gone with anyone. I think if she had fully cheated on Kyle, like hooked up with someone while they were still married, before they put out that little statement, before they lived in separate apartments, I think the Bravo audience would have been like, we get it. Like, we've all watched this be incredibly tumultuous. We've all seen the way he speaks to you. We get it. I think most of the audience would have had her back on that. It is specifically that you chose your best friend's ex. And I just don't want us to gloss over that. I don't want us to lose that. That is the problem. That is the betrayal. That is the issue. And anyone attempting to say, I don't get it because Sierra and Wes weren't together anymore, then you don't get friendship, frankly. And I'm scared of you. Don't come around me with that. And that brings us to how we closed out the reunion, which was with Sierra on the phone with Miha, West's ex-girlfriend. And I will say that conversation was illuminating. I'm glad they included it because it gave us another window into how manipulative and, quite frankly, sociopathic West is. Like, this is actually scary behavior. He was with this girl the whole time he was filming Summer House. The whole time he was flirting with Sierra, hugging up with Amanda, making out with that girl at that one party. The whole time he was going every, weekday back to Miha. She was in his apartment helping him build furniture. Like, they were like legit a couple. And according to her, he was telling her, the reason we can't have this relationship in public is because I don't want to get fired from Bravo. So that, number one, is manipulative, because we have seen plenty of people on Summer House and every other Bravo show be in relationships with people not on the show and have it be fine, including in this very season, Ben with Sabrina, Jesse with whoever that girl was he was bringing around for a couple episodes. We've seen it. We've watched it. Lindsay, I feel like multiple of her boyfriends in the earlier seasons were not in any way on the show. So that's just a lie and like extremely manipulative. But then also to try and blame it on Sierra by saying, oh, the audience is gonna, if I bring you around as a girlfriend, the audience is gonna pit you against Sierra. So not only is he just straight up lying to her about how Bravo works, but he's also essentially throwing Sierra under the bus and saying like, oh, the audience is just gonna have her back, and so they're not gonna like you, and it, and it's gonna be bad for you, right? Which, mind you, that's how Sierra came into the group, with hooking up with Luke and, supposedly supposed to have been pitted against Hannah, and she and Hannah became girls. So Sierra's just not even the type of person to let that happen if there's can be a genuine friendship there. So it just underscores truly how terrible West is. And, clearly we're going to get more into it in part 3. And I hope we do. I hope everyone leaves that stage very clear about the fact that West and Amanda are two terrible people who probably deserve one another, given how terrible they are. Whew, and once again, I feel great. Feel fantastic having gotten all of that off of my chest. And before we get out of here, of course, I do need to talk briefly about the fact that we are getting a new single from Taylor Swift for Toy Story 5. I did not participate in any of the lead up where people were seeing like whatever the Easter eggs were, the billboard that said TS and the 13 clouds, and people were thinking she's going to be in the movie, which I guess at this point she still could be. I don't know. I think the drop was she is going to be singing a song, like an original song for the movie. I don't think we still are speculating about her being in the movie. I don't know. But the point is, I was not participating in the lead up. I continue to be someone who mostly is excited once we get the thing. But now that we know the thing is coming, I am excited for it, because one thing I'll say about Toy Story, there are plenty of animated films out there that have made me cry. Toy Story is an animated film that made me sob. I'm trying to remember if it was Toy Story 3 or 4. I haven't watched them in a very long time. But one of them, whichever one it was, when I tell you I was in the theater sobbing. So given that it is the type of animated film that can bring me to just racking, heaving sobs, and Taylor Swift, who is the type of songwriter who can also bring me to heaving sobs, given that they're collaborating, I do think this is very exciting. I'm assuming this is going to be a very emotional song. And I've seen people say this is her wanting to go after her Oscar, and I'm not mad at that. I am not mad at that. If this is her wanting to get an Oscar, go girl. Get your Oscar. And I'll tell you what, if that is what this is, they're going about it the right way, because this is the only song I'm hearing them talk about. It's not like with other, like Dreamgirls. Dreamgirls, I felt like they had multiple original numbers and they were really kind of hyping them all up. And it's like, okay, so Listen, which may have been, what Beyonce was trying to do, get an Oscar for Listen from that movie. It wasn't the focal point enough. Contrast that with Here, I feel like this is the only song I've heard about. And so I feel like if this is Taylor looking to get her Oscar for Best Original Song, then the folks at Pixar are all on board with it, because it does have to be extremely collaborative. It has to be an original work specifically for the film, so on and so forth. There are all these guidelines. It seems like she has checked every single one of those boxes. And I'm not mad at her for it. I'm excited to hear it. It drops Friday, so you guys will get this episode Thursday. The next day, we will get the song. Of course, I will listen to it. And I hope it's great as a standalone song. That's my one concern, is a lot of times songs are great in the context of the movie, but not that great as a standalone. I would love it if it were both. I do get it, though, if it really just mostly makes sense in the context of the movie. You can still very much be Best Original Song. But, I think one of the things that made that Billie Eilish song, What Was I Made For, so special was that it just was a very beautiful, wonderful song even without the movie. We all heard the song before we saw the movie, and it was special on its own. I'm hoping that is true here as well. Either way, I'm very excited about it. So, let me know what you think. Are you excited? Do you have any theories about, the song or the song in the movie? What, the Taylor theories. I'm always happy to hear them, even if I don't necessarily get super excited for them. I'm always happy to hear them. So what are you thinking about it? Let me know. And that is it for this week. As always, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.